So South Carolina was number 1 in the AP rankings, and I don't think anybody can have a problem with that. You can disagree, but there's no problem with the defending champs who didn't lose a game last year and returned most of their players being number 1. One advantage South Carolina does have, though, is they played an exhibition game, which means they're going to be fresh in people's minds. They dominated Memphis, and people are going to say, look, that's why they're definitely number 1, when you don't see some of the other teams that could be vying for number 1 play. Notably, UConn, with Paige Becker's back, obviously, with Sarah Strong, the number 1 recruit, with AZ Fudd returning to the lineup, hopefully early in the season for Connecticut. Notre Dame, I think, is a team that could be really dangerous with that backcourt, Hidalgo and Miles. USC, obviously, Juju and Kiki, so on and so forth. There are some really good teams in college basketball as I'm starting to shift my attention toward NCAA women's basketball. With that said, South Carolina plays and they get to, like flex in a sense where people say, that's why they're number 1 and nobody can say otherwise. And that sort of seems to be the attitude around that institution at times, which could be effective, right? Like, that confidence could be effective. And they got reason to be confident. Obviously, Dawn Staley has built a hella program there, and they've got some really good players. Joyce Edwards, I just talked about Sarah Strong. I think that will be an argument all year, is who winds up the best freshman from the class. Joyce Edwards, I believe, was the Gatorade Player of the Year, and she had a strong debut for South Carolina. As you can see inside, tough to deal with there. And, South Carolina is just a much better team in this one. A good defense. Where were they on that play? Give me that. So, a nice entry to the team for her in her first action in uniform for South Carolina, as you see various highlights here from the game. And the finish. Gets inside. Reverse layup. Good defense on that one. Good tracking, good movement of the feet. That's what stood out to me on that play. Gets up. Gets it inside. Face up. Nice hezzy attack. So some impressive plays from Joyce Edwards in her South Carolina debut, which obviously got fans excited. And then, there's also, an exciting player on that team, Malaysia Fu, who twisted her ankle a little bit. Dawn Staley said she's okay, which is good news. Obviously, you don't want to see anybody get hurt, especially at this juncture before they're even, well, at any juncture, really. But she's got that electrifying quickness that is really fun to watch. Like that. Here I am. There I go. That's what you see from her, what you get from her. It'll be interesting to see how Dawn Staley delineates the playing time, because there's a lot of depth on South Carolina, but we don't know who they're going to go through per se, because that was Camila Cardoso last year that they went through. So that's, I think, the missing piece for them. If you're comparing them to the other teams where you say, all right, Connecticut's going to be Paige and AZ, who both could be top 5 picks in the draft. There's a ton of talent on South Carolina, but what's that identity going to be without Cardoso, who was sort of the fulcrum for everything they did? Nonetheless, there's no doubting the program. I mean, at worst, they're going to be a top 2, 3, 4 team, right? I mean, I don't see there's any, the floor is very, very high for the Gamecocks. And their fans seem to be awful cocksure about their status as the number 1 team in the country.